Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for being here. I don't know if anybody's watching because this is a little bit of an impromptu start. And this stream was rescheduled from a week ago because initially I was having some internet problems, and then our guest was having some power problems, and we had to reschedule. So this was supposed to be like a Thanksgiving, post Thanksgiving stream, but now it's sort of turned into I don't know, like an early Advent stream. I'm going to try to keep this stream to about 30 to 40 minutes. I'm under strict orders from my wife to do so. You all know how that goes. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring in our guest for today. If you are in the Facebook group, don't tell my wife. You all know him. He's pretty prolific in the group. Great guy, great collector, lots of knowledge. So I'm going to bring him in. This is Jonathan. Jonathan, how's it going?
It's going great, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, our pleasure, man. Really happy that you're here. Been wanting to get you on to do this one-on-one, but obviously he's got a family. Everybody's got things going on, so I'm happy that we can make this work.
Absolutely. Internet
So
and network,
go
they're
ahead,
letting
go ahead,
us
go
have
ahead,
it.
go ahead. I wanted to say that again, if you're in the Facebook group, you know him. Um, if you have any questions that you want to pose for Jonathan, write them down in the comments, and we'll try to get Jonathan to answer them. Hopefully by the end. So again, we're going to try to keep this to about 30 to 40 minutes, and we'll just get started right away. So Jonathan, first question: tell us about your journey as a collector.
Oh man. So it's been about 40 years, a little over. Uh, I'm an 80s, 90s kid. So I think I grew up, the Fruity Pebbles and Fruit Loops in the mornings, watching the cartoons, He-Man, G.I. Joe, Transformers, and then kind of progressed from there. I'd say my biggest influences in the collecting spaces were probably my mom, ironically, because I think she enabled a lot of it. She was always really good about taking me to this local toy shop. It was called Johnny's Toys. It was local to where we lived. It was a brick and mortar store. It was one of those things when you're a kid, you walk in and it's like wall to wall, and they're like 20-foot walls, and they're just awesome action figures everywhere and all sorts of stuff. And then next to her, it would be my uncle, who's more like an older brother because he's not much older than I am. But he was always really big into the comic scene. He's a huge comic collector. And he, would pick up action figures for whatever comic run that he was looking at. I remember, the Spider-Man animated series. He's a huge Spider-Man fan. And he had all those little Toy Biz, like 5.5-inch figures. And they always, I remember he had the Venom with the goo that you could kind of put over top of it, or it would squirt out of its chest. And then he had the Punisher, and like I would always go into his room and play with those, and he would always get irritated. And then he realized he's like, that they're toys, they're meant to be played with. But he was a really big influence for me because he always gave me his hand-me-down stuff. So I remember inheriting all of his Kenner Star Wars action figures. I wish that I'd had been more respectful of them as a youth and kept them in good shape. But we were really close to Kenner when they were being produced, and he had everything. I remember, having the Rancor and the Ewok play sets and all that stuff. So I'd say those were probably my two biggest influences. But I think being an 80s, 90s kid, I mean, that was like the comics boom, the Saturday morning cartoons, all of those things, all of those properties and IPs, they really just kind of put it in your head that you had to buy the next thing and, imitate it as you were playing. So that's really kind of how my collecting started. And it's been a journey ever since.
Okay, so would you say that you were a toy collector or a comic collector first?
I was always a toy collector, right? I always prefer, I think because I got into comics as I got a little bit older because I like to read and I like to draw. I emulated a lot of what he did because he was an artist as well. But when I was younger, I'd buy the action figures so that I could replicate what I saw on, this week's episode or this week's book that he showed me or whatever. So I was always more of a toy collector.
Okay. And as a kid, what lines were you playing with?
As a child,
Yeah.
oh man, I was a very, very fortunate kid. We didn't grow up like with a ton of money or anything like that, but I never really realized that. Right. So when my mom would get stuff for us, I mean, if there was a new property that came out, obviously the big ones. So, I had a lot of the G1 Transformers, um, G.I. Joe. Like I was a huge Snake Eyes fan. I wanted to be a ninja, I think, for like the first 8 years of my life. Now I'm
In
not at
the
all.
80s, who didn't want to be a ninja, right? Like,
Right. I mean, American Ninja, like Michael Dudikoff, dude, I watched, if we had more than 40 minutes, I could go on and on and on. He-Man, I wanted to look like He-Man and Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I wanted to be, like a ninja. So that's kind of an oxymoron, I guess.
yeah.
But as like new stuff came out, I think one of the other properties that I was really, really into for a few years was Mighty Morphin Power Rangers that came out in '93. And I remember like religiously watching that show, waiting for the next episode for the first couple seasons as it was Mighty Morphin. And I was always a huge uh, Jason David Frank fan, rest in peace. Really cool person to meet. He was super cool when I met him. But he was always my favorite Ranger, right? So I had like all the Power Ranger toys. I remember hounding my dad when they started dropping those like terrible, terrible action figures with the Zords and they had the Green Ranger and Dragon Zord 2-pack. I remember incessantly saying, "Hey, can we go to the toy store?" Like just trying to get that because it was sold out, within minutes. And I eventually got one and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. But I'd say early on, I pretty standard stuff, nothing out of the norm. Whenever there was like a new property, if there were new toys that came out, I usually got those. Like I think Spawn had a huge run in the mid 90s, Batman the Animated Series, like anything that was big at the time, I was a sheep and flocked to as a
Okay.
youth. So,
So, as you say, you've always been a toy collector,
mhm.
but what point did you kind of shift from playing with toys to collecting toys?
Oh gosh. Um, I'd say when I hit late middle school, early high school, right? Like I'd always enjoyed putting action figures on a shelf and putting them in a display. Um, but I think as I got a little bit older, it became less cool. Like when your buddies were coming over after, football practice or whatever to play video games, like, hey,
What's that?
what's that? But I will say I was also a big WWE fan in the
Okay.
'90s, and through most of the Attitude Era, I guess. So I always had some of the WWE figures kind of like on the shelf, and
Mhm.
for whatever reason, that was more. I guess folks were more accepting of WWE action figures as opposed to like GI Joes or
Yeah.
Power Rangers or whatever. But yeah, I'd say that's probably when I kind of stopped playing with them and more so just kind of shelving them or like displaying them.
Okay. So, once you made that transition,
Mhm.
was most of the stuff early on, was it mostly like wrestling stuff?
I'd say no, not necessarily. I did have a good amount of wrestling stuff. I think the Jacks, so the old Hasbro figures, the ones that kind of like look like this. I
Yeah.
had I had a few of those, and I had the whole run of the Jacks things that I think came out in like the mid '90s. I had a good amount of those, but I still had a lot of stuff from previous birthdays, Star Wars, the Powers of the Force line that was big. I had a ton of those. And then obviously, as the late '90s kind of came in, we started to see, the prequel trilogy stuff. So I always had a really kind of a mixed bag of the things that I was collecting. That's who I was. That's what I like to do. Collecting was always a hobby. I also had like basketball and baseball and football cards. It's probably something that could be studied. The stuff that I collected, but yeah.
So, I don't know how to say it. like when you transitioned and you were collecting, you had been playing, you were collecting, you're trying to like, keep it on the DL, I guess, so to
Mm.
speak. What kind of volume are you bringing in terms of like purchases per month?
Per month? Oh gosh. I'd say
Because we start like, are we really collecting? Is it more just, we're just kind of gathering some stuff?
yeah.
When you're a collector, it's a little bit more, it's more repetitive. Like, I got to get this, I got to get this, I got to get
Yeah,
that.
that's a fair question. I'd say it would be kind of funny if I said six figures a month, right? Um, it probably wasn't too far off from that. I mean, when it started kind of transitioning, like the cost of figures, the things that in my mind at that time, I wasn't of the mindset where I am now, where I've got big kid money and the cost. I don't want to say isn't an object because you have to be responsible. Um, but like I still kind of focused on like the $5 to $15 range, right?
Mm.
And if I had money from chores or I had money from birthdays or I had saved money or whatever, I would try to be responsible where I put a little bit away. But I try to bring in at least a couple. Um, I know that Wizard Magazine was something that was really big as I was kind of growing up, and that was something that would
Mhm,
kind of display like new things that were coming out. Just try to
mhm.
stay paying attention to the things that were coming out and the properties that I liked, and I try to pick up, one or two of the main characters I think in most things. So I'd say it's probably anywhere from 2 to 6 figures a month is what I tried to do, and whichever line was most interesting at the time.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned Wizard because, I was collecting comics and I was collecting toys, but I wouldn't say I was really collecting them. I was just sort of I was going after older stuff. I was going after stuff that had already come out, like the older Star Wars stuff or the Joes that when I was older, they were gone. I didn't have them anymore, and I was just trying to, repurpose them for my collection. And I'm reading Wizard, and it's showing me that, there's a market for toys, and I had no idea at the time. I'm maybe like 14 years old. I had no idea, and it blew my mind
Yeah.
that like there was actually this market, there was this collecting community that was focused on toys, and that knowledge totally shifted me.
Okay.
Like it was like seeing the light. Like, oh my God, like I'm not alone in this. I'm not the only one who's doing this. There's other
Right.
people doing it because this is pre-internet days, right? Like we
Right.
don't know.
Yeah.
And your circle of friends, they don't do what you're doing. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like there's no toy stores that are dedicated, at least at the time, to older figures.
Yeah.
You would have like traveling conventions that would sell stuff, but I didn't really know about those and I didn't go to those because I was
Yeah.
14. And then I see Wizard and it's talking about like the GI Joe figures and the Star Wars figures and what they're going for, and I was like, holy shit, like this is real. Like I can do this.
Yeah.
So, it's funny that you mentioned Wizard because for me that was a turning point in my life, like in terms of collecting and everything. So
Yep.
yeah,
I'm with you.
Wizard. Yeah.
Wizard
Great
Magazine.
magazine. Great
It really
magazine.
was. It's so
Yeah.
funny. I'm talking about Wizard and thinking about collection um, this month. So thinking about I'm going to refer to him as my older brother. My older brother, um, I remember in 1993, he was really big into like the image shift. Like he loves Spawn, and I remember him coming to me one day after going to the comic store, like talking me up to this new character that's coming out, and it's Pitt. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, and I love I always like the powerhouse guys. So like my favorite superheroes are Thor and Superman, and he's like, man, there's this new character. The guy who drew Hulk and did a great job doing the Hulk is doing Pitt. He's like, you got to get this, and I was like, you know what? I remembered getting those books, and I actually went out and I found the editions that he bought. He bought me volume 1 and 2, which is kind of funny. I think they were like volume 1 came out 1 month, and second volume came out like 4 months later or something like that. but I still have the originals, and they're in pretty good shape. I don't think they'd rate like, they'd grade as a 9 or anything like that, but they're in really good shape for a 10-year-old at the time. And I was like, you know what, it would be cool to go back and get. So I actually recently purchased the 1 through 9 of those because the artwork is just great. And
Oh yeah.
I read the first couple books or whatever, and I think that the character itself is like super cool looking. And I never had the build a figure, but I actually the Axie Toys thing, the not Pit figure that came out, that reminded me of it. I'm like, I could put like one of the comics in the back of the shelf, display it together or whatever. But it's funny to think back at the types of things that were big at those points that influenced you when you picked them up, and you're like, oh, it'd be cool to go back and get a couple of those things, like you were saying, like. And I remember Wizard, like it had the Beckett at the back of it, or what, it didn't have the Beckett at the back of it, did it? Can't remember now.
I
But
think it
yes,
did.
like Wizard had a ton of stuff. So
Had a ton
anyway,
of stuff.
I digress.
I mean, Wizard was so iconic and so influential in the community that, Todd McFarlane was drawing covers specifically for Wizard. Like
And it had
not
some amazing it had some amazing covers, like not just the covers and the material inside too. I remember, when publication ceased, we were like, oh man, that stinks, like bygone era. But yeah.
yeah, yeah. So you were a collector, you've always been a collector, you're an adult, you go from a teenager to a man, you've got
Mhm.
other things going on in your life. Was there a pause? Were you constantly collecting or was there a hiatus?
It definitely paused right as I was starting in my career. Your liquidity isn't, you don't have mom and dad or uncle brother kind of like spotting you. So there definitely was a slowdown, but I had always collected something, right? So I was super fortunate. I met the love of my life, very young, not very young, but I met her young, and she kind of like knew who I was. So she was always very supportive, as long as I wasn't being irresponsible. Um, and I would always pick up a few things. And like I'd say during the mid 2000s till about 2010, I'd say it was much slower, right? Like because I didn't have the space. That's always a problem, right? Real estate is always a big deal when it comes to collecting. I mean, if you look at my displays and the space that I
Your little coffee table that you have there
oh
with all the
man.
figures.
Well, yeah, like I have to put stuff and I have to constantly move stuff and I have to put stuff away. But if I took the camera, like like this right here, it goes all the way around, right? Um, but I'd say from the early 2000s, mid to early 2000s till about 2010, I kind of slowed down. Um, I don't know if you remember Final Fantasy like 7.
Yeah.
That was a game that I was really big into, Zelda, Final Fantasy 7. And around 2010, I think, Advent Children, which was like a sequel to the video game, came out. And they
Mhm.
released a line, Play Arts released a line of figures. And that really kind of got me back into it because right around that time you started to have NECA kind of hit the scene with some of their God of War figures and some of their Assassin's Creed figures, which they're great looking figures. They don't move. They're mostly staction figures, but that kind of got me back into collecting. And I would probably pick up, a handful of figures a year. I'd say it probably dropped to about 1 to 2 figures a month, maybe, depending upon what they were. It's just at that time, you're young, you're trying to establish yourself, you're getting married. And, you know, income kind of has a tendency to
Yeah.
go to things that
Yeah.
are a little bit
Yeah.
more important, more priority, higher
Yeah.
priority.
So your collecting experience now, what are you collecting? What are you buying these days?
Oh gosh, that's a loaded question, man. I'd say the things that I focus on, again, my two favorite are Thor and Superman. So regardless of property or line, if there's a Thor or Superman figure that comes out, I try to get it. But aside from that, I really enjoy uh, Mafex. I think they're honestly their comic stuff has kind of kept me interested in Mafex in general. just because I think they do a really good figure, or they had been doing really good figures. I think some of their faces look kind of the same, but I like Mafex. I was really big into the Marvel Legends from like 2017 to 2022 ish. And really, Marvel Legends are putting out fantastic figures. I'll still get a few of them here and there. It's just I couldn't keep up. Like as much as I do, as much as I do put into my collection, the amount of figures that they were putting out and the quality, especially now, it's like it's hard to keep up if you want to keep them all or get them all.
Yeah.
But I'd say Mafex, a few SH figure arts here and there. Um, it's really diverse, man. I've got, like, looking around, I have a bunch of things. I'd say the things that are most interesting to me now are actually a lot of the third party things, third party releases. I was a big World of Warcraft player to the chagrin of my wife from like 2008 until I don't want to say when. But I always really liked the property, the lore, and they never really had a really good action figure line. Like they did this DC collectibles, I'd say in the 2010s, 2020, like from 2010 to 2015, maybe. But they didn't move. They were just kind of like you posed and that's all they did. But Medi Toys, I think I've talked about it quite a bit on in the Facebook group, Medi Toys, Mithril Studios. They're releasing some really, really neat things for that particular property. And obviously it's third party stuff, but I think they're fantastic. And not just like the property, but the figures themselves, the engineering that goes into them, the paint, the accessories, which are all huge deals to collectors nowadays. Like the things that we, I think in general, care about as collectors is so funny now because you go back to when we started and it's like you had 5 points of articulation, maybe, it's like, but they were the most awesome things in the world. But now you see what's out there and you see the things that the articulation that they can do, the poses you can put them on the shelf. And it's just like, you can really, truly emulate whatever, imagery you want from a comic book or from a cartoon or whatever.
Mm. Are you into the G.I. Joe classified?
I do have some. But I still want to be a ninja at my age. Mostly the stuff that I have is Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes.
Okay. I don't know if you caught it. I was on the Figure Fight Club stream with Al Sneaky, and they gave away like 42, 43 figures and things over.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah, over the course of like 5 hours. But I gave away, I don't even know where I put it. Here it is. I gave away a Firefly.
Oh, nice.
So this is a 3-0. Do you have any of these?
I don't have the 3-0 stuff.
No?
Besides the classified and like the old retro things, I do have some of the Mezco G.I. Joes.
Okay.
Again, mostly Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, but I recently moved on from my Destro, my Duke, and Roadblock, just to kind of make room for other things. But I still got the Commando Snake Eyes, which is a great figure, pure nostalgia, and then the Storm Shadow, and then the standard Snake Eyes with Timber.
Mm-hmm. Do you collect 1/6?
No, I haven't fallen into that pond yet. I know that every time that I'm on the stream, you guys really like to, lay it into me. Like, come on, you got to get a 1/6. I'm sure at some point in my collection,
some point you'll get something.
I'm sure I'll get something. I'm just waiting for the right one.
Yeah. Okay. So, if you had to lose all your lines but one, what would it be?
If I had to lose all of my lines but one, you hit me with the tough questions. The answer would probably change depending upon circumstances. I would say right now, if I had to lose all but one, it would probably be the Medi Toy stuff now. But I'd say the thing, like if you're just a person who's wanting to get into it, is there a deep well of like figures? Honestly, like Hasbro's hard to beat, man. Like the Marvel Legends line, there's so many good figures now. It's even earlier, like more recent things, you can go back and get a lot of good things that are out today, but even not so far in the distant past, you can get some really good ones as well. Um, there's a lot of good lines out there right now, like Jada Toys, Storm Arena, like the Street Fighter stuff. I cannot tell you how many quarters I threw into that arcade as a child, and to have those figures now. And I know we've had the Soda stuff, and there's been NECA, but the things that they're doing now in the Street Fighter line are crazy impressive.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I can answer that. There's also Mezco. Like I have probably 70 Mezco figures. I like their stuff. I'm less into it now than I was a few years ago, just because they're a little slow to release things. And if we had another 40 minutes, we could probably talk about Mezco alone. But that's a tough one. I'd say right now would probably be the Meditoy stuff.
Okay. So Medi. Now, if I had to put you on the spot
Oh gosh,
and say, name a company that you absolutely don't want anything from, what would it be?
Mattel.
Really?
Yeah, I've got a lot of their recent like Ultimate figures. I wouldn't say a
Mhm.
lot. I've got a handful. And with all of the advancements in the action figure space, and I think they cater to like younger demographics, right? So they're not as concerned about some of the things that, comic book collectors or people who are into like articulated comic book art, things like that. They may not be as tailored to that, but I think that company, you go back to the DCUC stuff or DCUC stuff. Like they had DC for such a long time, and they started out really hot and heavy with like a lot of the DCUC, but it just didn't evolve, right? So I think I'm less interested in them, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everything that they do is bad, right? It's just I think that's probably my least desirable line right now with what I'm interested in.
Okay. A grail. A grail of something that's been released that you want in your collection that you don't have.
If my wife were watching, I wouldn't say this, but I usually get most of my grails. So I don't know. Something that I don't have that I really, really, really want
That's out there.
that's
It's
out
out there.
there. I would say I had it at one time. Something that I would love to go back and get would be the original Snake Eyes. The original Snake
The,
Eyes, the
the Commando.
commando. Yep, with the pouch and the Uzi. Yes, the original one.
Okay.
I'd say that would be the one that I would go back and get.
So you had that, meaning you had that when you were a kid.
I had it when I was a kid, and my older brother bought me one as an adult,
Ooh.
and I had to move from it. I got an offer for it, and at the time, the missus said that there were things that had to go, and I made some choices. I think everybody in life has made choices they
Yeah,
regret.
many a tear was shed that day. Yeah.
Yes, we played taps, right? No,
Okay, so what is that? 82 was
was
the
it 80?
straight on? I
I,
think it was like 82. The
I
first
think so.
wave.
Yes, the first wave. Yes,
I think it was 82.
yeah. Like I
Okay.
said, man, I wanted to be a ninja. He was my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. All right. So, last question, at least for
Sure.
now. What are your favorite 3 pickups over the last month or 2?
Favorite 3 pickups over the last month or 2. I would say, so I recently got a Mithril Studios Sylvanas Windrunner. I posted that in the Facebook group.
Mhm.
That's a really cool figure. It's a little bit oversized with other lines. I know a lot of people like to mix and match and put stuff into other lines. It's a little oversized, but it's really a really cool figure. The next one would probably be, and this is probably one of my top figures of the year, is the Hero Toys or Medi Toys Grom Hellscream.
Okay.
That fig, Yeah, that figure, man, comes with a ton of accessories if you get the deluxe version, and the bucks that Medi is using, the articulation, the detail, the paint, it's second to none, man. That's easily my figure of the year. And I've had some really cool figures this year with like Muff Studios and things like that, and the National Defender. There's been a lot of really good stuff, but that's still my top.
Wow.
And ironically, another.
Spoiler.
Well, go ahead. Go ahead. Spoiler. Yes. Well, it's there's still like 13 days, right?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
something could change. Um, and then I'd say I'm trying to think because I've gotten a few cool ones over the last couple of months. I think the Storm Arena Ryu, I got that in, and really I think that's a really cool line. I know that they're selling out, and I'm kind of hoping that they do a rerun at least of a couple of the early ones. I had Ken in my pile of loot a few times, and I kind of decided, I had the Jada Toys one. Do I really want it? And they had the Asia market exclusive at one point, I think, and those sold out. And I'm like looking online, if I have to go back and get it, but I don't want to spend $90 on it. But it's a great figure, and I've spent, again, if my wife is listening, don't close your ears, but I've spent $90 on lesser figures. So I think the Storm Arena stuff is really kind of cool, and I think they've got some releases coming up that are going to be really interesting to see. I think they've recently displayed like Akuma, Zangief, a lot of the things that are on the horizon, and I think I read somewhere that Sagat is actually getting ready to release soon as well, and I think that's a really, really neat looking figure. Or it already might have already have released overseas. Yep.
Yeah.
Yujiro.
This is the latest one that I've gotten. I got to get Sagat. Yeah, these are cool. They're so nice.
And they're like $30, right?
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about this before with some of the stuff that Inat is doing. You see Mafex, which has been huge over the last several years, but their prices have continued to increase. And you like to see innovations, you'd like to see new things, and not to say that they're stagnant or anything like that, but some of these newer companies that they're releasing figures that other companies have done, and you're like, wow. And you're seeing that it's like 30% less. It's like, hey, what's going on, LPZZ? How you doing? Or in our like,
yeah,
let's hang out. So I'm always trying to be conscientious of a good buy for the money, but I'd say those are my three.
All right. Favorite new company?
Favorite new company? I would say it's
probably not new, but into the 112 market.
Into the 112 space. Honestly, I'm gonna say LPZZ because I think with what I've seen, like I only have the Arkham Knight Batman. That's a great figure. It really is. Just the amount of things that went into that figure at the price point is crazy. And I love the Arkham series video games. I remember playing those not that long ago, way into the wee hours of the morning. Wonder if we'll ever get a Batmobile, hopefully. But I'd say LPZZ with very, very close in art. Or Inat. I'd say those are probably, yeah. They just, I mean, the stuff that they did, they're so cool, right? I do want to see more from the properties that I enjoy, but I understand that they've got different markets and things like that they have to accommodate. So, but stuff's on the horizon. I mean, you guys are always great about whetting the appetite, so to speak. You see these figures, and it's like this stuff's coming out, and it's like, wow, there's some really cool stuff.
Damn you guys.
Right. Like it's the holiday season. I need to spend money on other people, not myself.
Ignorance is bliss sometimes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, for me, Inot gets me more excited simply because, I mean, I really like the Arkham Knight Batman, but the head, it doesn't compare to that Bale Batman.
Not at all. It does. You're
Not
right.
at all. And, I mean, the articulation on the LPZZ is fantastic. The likeness on the Inod is fantastic.
Mhm.
If you can kind of blend it somehow, kind of, take a little bit of that and a little bit of this, I think you have the perfect figure. So for me, it's kind of like hand in hand,
Yep.
right? Like they're both kind of coming on now in the 112, um, 112 scene. And then you have like 6-inch plus
Hmm.
going from like customs to now, here we're gonna start releasing stuff like that. Snake Eyes.
I know the Commando Snake Eyes. It looks great. The Punisher look cool. The Thor and I think he did a kit uh, a year or so ago for Thor. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that are coming out on the horizon that are very, very exciting. Like for
Yeah.
everybody, really.
Like, the gong. That's the
Mhm.
gong, at least with I don't know what it is with the new Hush, but the Shazam and the Superman, they were a collaboration with Pop Mart
Yep.
of Labubu fame.
I don't have
But
any of those. That's not my speed, but
not your bag.
not my bag,
Um,
man.
but for me, and I've said it so many times, the padding that they have on the thighs,
I know.
it's just like, what is that? Like, it's so out of nowhere. It
I think you can get away
ruins
with.
for me a great looking figure. I
Mhm.
just can't get beyond that. Like, what are you thinking there?
No, that's a fair criticism. I think I've got two of each. I've got the deluxe, and then I've got the standard for both of
Mhm,
those.
mhm.
And you're spot on. The engineering and the lower portion of the body is just odd, and even some of the upper body proportions are kind of odd. Um, I definitely think with the bigger figure like Shazam and Superman, they're meant to be massive, right? So you
Sure.
can kind of get away with it a little bit. I actually am not getting the Gong Hush Batman because I don't think it looks great personally. I think it's Batman's obviously supposed to be a large human, right? But the body proportions are very, unappealing to the eye. And that thigh whatever shelf
Yeah,
is um absolutely something that stands out and you're just like it just doesn't look good. And
yeah.
there's already like
And there's other versions of Hush out there that you can get.
exactly LPZZ in art. I think LPZZ is doing is in art as well.
I don't know if Inot is, I can't remember, but LPZZ
I've
definitely
seen
is.
some of the grayscales and they
Yeah,
look amazing. And then obviously, the Mafex Hush stuff is really good too. So, but yeah,
yeah.
I'm with you. I think it's always interesting, like with companies when you release stuff, especially in kind of like a small scale, and you worry that it's like, is that going to sink their run, right? With the I don't know anybody that didn't criticize the thighs on Shazam and Superman, and it's like I don't know aside from Mattel and the DCUC stuff or McFarlane, who'd really done like Alex Ross Kingdom Come figures before. I know that BMS did a Kingdom Come Superman, but the face scans and the sculpts on the Gong Studio stuff are fantastic. They really are great. So it was like those when they released, they're going to be fantastic. But when people saw the thigh shelf, you're like, what on earth? Like, what is that?
Mhm.
So I'm with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're not for everybody. Some people love them, and, that's cool. But for me, once I saw those thighs and just the way that they were designed, I could never get past that.
Yeah.
And I've considered getting the Hush and just having him airborne,
Yeah.
like a leg up and a leg down that you can mask it, you know what I mean? But then I'm like, well, should I just save that money and just get another figure? So it's
And it for me the Hush like when you look at it and I don't ever want to rip on anybody really, but like when you look at the figure and you look at the artwork, for me when you pick up a figure, I think I want it to emulate as much as the artwork that you've seen. And Jim Lee's got a very distinctive art style, right?
Yep.
When you look at, I don't know that those figures, specifically Batman, translate super well to like a soft goods kind of look. I don't think the material hangs appropriately. And yeah, it's got like a big barrel chest, but to me, it doesn't look great. And I don't think like the face looks great either. Like I don't think that's their best release.
Okay. All right, man. Well, we are at the 40-minute mark. Right on time, right on schedule.
We did it. I kept you out of trouble.
Yeah, you did. I can hear my wife in the other room though. She's, banging shit. So I want to thank you for being on, and I want to give you a minute or two to plug or promote anything you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty low key, man. I enjoy interacting with people on the groups. I think of late I've been a little busy with work and the kids, so I haven't been as active as I had in previous months. But I'm always open for conversation, dialogue. I've mentioned the things that I enjoy. I like to see the things that folks are doing. I love when folks show their displays, because I think, as a community, the things that you're trying to build and have built, it's a great place where people with like-minded, like-minded interests can talk and dialogue and, kind of get away from some of the day-to-day mundane and challenging things that we're all dealing with. So the Don't Tell My Wife Facebook group has definitely been a great place to go and have those conversations and see those things. The streams that you do, I mean, honestly, I don't have a stream myself. I participate as often as I can with you guys, and it's a good community and a lot of cool people. And I think that this is a fun space. I like keeping it fun. But yeah, if you want to reach out to me, I think I'm at TheMighty25 on Instagram, or you see me on Facebook, feel free to reach out.
That's all right, man. Cool. Thank you very much. So we're trying to get him on for our countdown stream, which will be in a couple weeks. Hopefully he makes the time. It's not an easy commitment to make.
Hopefully he makes the time for us.
Hopefully he makes the time. It's not easy. It's gonna be two different streams. So again, thank you very much for being on. Appreciate it.
For having me.
And again, everybody, thank you for coming and tuning in and watching. Really appreciate it. So have a good day, have a good weekend, and see everybody next time. Take care.